923. It's 923 and higher. And for those of you that hadn't heard the news yet, as of late yesterday, Oracle released tools 924, which has got a lot of features. We'll be talking. I won't be talking about it today because the material I'm discussing will apply across the board, but we'll be sending out and updating some of our content on it. So we'll be talking about multi-foundation and the fact that with this tools release, you can now use Server Manager to do the multi-foundation versus the old manual setup. If time permits, I will get in the lab and make a few, I'll actually run through it and try to get it so to the point where you can see it in action. We'll do a few components. The deployment server takes, about 10 minutes. So, I'll click on it and maybe take questions while it's running. So this is kind of like a click by click demonstration. I'll show you screen prints. You could actually take this presentation, read through it, and click by click. And a lot of my webcasts, those of you that have been here, I've seen some of my previous ones, knows that's how I do things. But basically, multi-foundation is the ability to run 2 or more tools releases on the same servers, or in some cases you'll do it on different servers. I call that hardware tools releases, but many people who have iSeries, not everybody has 2 machines. They'll have 1 big one, and you still need to be able to test the tools release in the lower level environments, because you don't really want to affect production until you've done your testing. So again, as I mentioned, prior to this, to the 923 series, it involved manual steps on the deployment server to get this working, copying folders, etc., editing files, getting in and creating foundations inside of the planner. Now, the good news is all of that is now done via Server Manager. And you can very easily change foundations with the click of a few buttons, and it'll save a lot of time. It also prevents missing steps, which is quite common with doing the multi-foundation in the past. And as a matter of practice, multi-foundation is a best practice by Oracle, by GSI, and hopefully by you as well. Hopefully you don't just take a tools release and put it right into production without testing it. I have seen that done. Don't recommend it. Things, like I said, 924 came out today, or late yesterday. If you were to take it today, download and take it today, great. But it's not a .1 off release. You're not going from 922 3 to 923.4. It's 924. It's the third number here where I'm circling with the mouse. It's a rather major release. They're making 64-bit across the board. So on the deployment server and everything, that it could break things. It's pretty much that simple, and that's why best practice. Okay, so on to what it is you need to do. You can go into Oracle support and go, click on the JD Edwards and do a search for the various components. But most CNC folks use Change Assistant now to download these, and I didn't update this for 924 because, again, it just came out last night, and it would have taken me literally a week to get this prepared for 924. So it's based on 9234. So we just get into Server Manager, go down to Enterprise 1 tools releases, all 9.2 in this case, whatever release you're on, and then you click the Find button, and then check the boxes that you want and download the components. It'll you hit the down button and give you a folder of where you wish to put your files. So that's the first step, is you have to download the tools release components from from Oracle support. Okay, so after you download them, you then have to upload those components into Server Manager. So, and you do that via the manage software components upload right here. You go and you'll click to choose the file, the various files, and you have to do it for everything that you downloaded. Our previous screen, we had 6 or 7 things that we downloaded. You'll have to upload all of them in all of these components into Server Manager. So after it's in Server Manager, it doesn't mean it's been pushed out to the various servers. So you have to go through the distribute software component. In this case, I'm distributing the deployment server. I check on that, and I would just click the distribute button after that. Okay, so then you go back to the Server Manager machine itself, because we've got to update Server Manager, and you click on the Home button. You go in there and notice at this point in time, I'm running 9233 for the console home. Click on the change button. Notice that I'm on 9233 here. Then I select the new version. Notice I had put the 9234 version up here. You don't have to distribute this component as it was a part of because Server Manager is on the deployment server in this case. So the deployment server component did not have to necessarily be distributed, but the other components would be, and if Server Manager was on another box, you might have to as well. So when you click on it, it's going to take a few minutes to change out the Server Manager component. Although it says the current operation will continue even if the browser is closed, I don't advise going off of it. There is a process later that I'll talk about where if you leave the process, you really mess life up. And you can leave the browser and it'll end up leaving your deployment server in a mixed state, incomplete tools release. And I accidentally did that. I had a session when I was doing this webcast, I was doing a presentation at InFocus. I left it in that state. What had happened is somebody else was on the deployment server as a different user. So we had 2 users on at the same time, had files locked, and it messed things up. So this one you could leave, but I suggest you don't. So after you update Server Manager to the new tools release, you'll have to sign in again. All right, and then you just want to validate that the change occurred, get back into the Managed Console Home, and notice we've got 9234 running on that. Some older tools releases did not have an agent on the deployment server. So now the newer tools releases, 923, 924, you do have a deployment server component. Because prior to that, you just installed the tools release manually on the deployment server. But now you can do this via Server Manager. Okay, so now after you've updated your Server Manager, all of a sudden your agents are obsolete because these machines are running older versions of the update. And this was a lab system, and we have a couple servers that are down. When I do the demo, you'll see that it's even worse than that now because it's a lab environment. We're doing some testing. Not everything's up and running. So just check all the boxes that you want to update. In this case, JDE Enterprise 1, Jazz 02, and the deployment server itself, because you got to get that agent updated as well. And then just click the update button. And it'll take a minute or so, and then those agents will come up. I have had some problems with that though, with the agents getting updated but then not restarting, especially in a Linux environment. I've seen it, and I just go to the Linux server and run the script to restart agent, and it'll come back up. But in most cases it should work for you, but just understand sometimes the agents don't come back up. Sometimes it can take a minute or two to come up as well. Give it a few seconds while the services are restarting. Don't just assume that's not working, go to the box, give it a, give it a minute or two. So you'll get, take note of this, and then click OK. It says, I guess it just says exactly what I just said. If it doesn't restart with a few minutes, you'll have to go to the machine. I have seen that happen, but usually it should work. So I guess I put that in there, forgot I did that. All right, and then afterwards, double check that your agents are okay. JD Jazz 1 at this point in time was not in use. It is now. My apologies. I seem to have gone ahead. Sorry about that, folks. I ended up clicking the back button. Let's get caught up here. All right, JD Jazz 1 is not in use at this time, so I didn't bother with updating it. Okay, so now this, the first thing you want to do is get the deployment server up to speed, and you have to do some thinking with the deployment server. There's still 32 and 64-bit support, and you need to understand that because some code is still 32-bit based. So you have to make sure you get the right components, and I'll talk about this a little more in a second. So we're going to go in and click on GSI deploy. In this case, we're on 9.2.3.3, and we want to change out the component. So we'll just click the change button as usual. Pick the one that you want. Okay, now notice I was talking a little bit about this case, and it says Enterprise 1 Deployment Server 9234 x86. Okay, that's a 32-bit version. Now in this case, I don't have the 64-bit version here, but this component, this x86, is actually related to the enterprise server. And then if you have a 64-bit enterprise server, at least in the 9.2.3.4 release, you would actually have to include that. I haven't tested the 9.2.4 yet. We don't have it working. That may change in an all 64-bit situation. You might not have to pick that extra component. So in this case, we're going to pick 9.2.3.4 32-bit, and then normally you want to click component change and back up the current system. I can't think of a time when maybe you just want to download it for future reference to make sure you have a copy. If you want to roll back to a different version, maybe you've got 9.2.3.5 for things. I don't know, but the middle one is the one you probably want to do. Now, the first one is if you don't really want to do multi-foundation, you're just going to change the component, but that's not the purpose of what we're talking about today. So then you just want to click the change component button. Okay, so here's the sticky part. You need to know the database password for the system data source, and for 9.2, the username is usually sy920, but I highly advise you to know this and test signing it in first, because you will have problems if you don't have the right password and database connectivity for system. Okay, so this is the process that I said takes quite a bit of time. Takes about 10-15 minutes. Don't leave this page. If you leave this page, you will see issues. I've personally experienced it. And that's why I just say in general, don't be bouncing around server manager. Sometimes when I'm starting services and I don't feel like waiting for it, I'll leave a page, but mostly I don't. I stay on the page. I let the browser finish what it's doing. So it's a 12-step process to go through and configure all of the components. This is the part that is doing most of the work. This is where the multi-foundation is creating the folders that you're used to doing manually. It modifies the INF files. It gets into the system, the planner, and it creates the foundation that you need. And that's why it takes this amount of time. So afterwards, just get back into it and validate it that it's been updated to the new tools release. So we'll say version 9.2.3.4 in this case. If you want to, you can go out to the deployment server folder. I did. You can see the various folders, and you notice in this case I have multiple foundations that I played with while I was doing this. Look, you can see the foundation copies that were made, and you can get inside there to see the files if you want. If you end up having a mistake, like let's say you do click off that page right in the middle of it, and life doesn't end up looking too good, you need to go back into the system folder, system comp, just one World Client install, just like you used to do. You might have to go into one of these foundation folders to copy files, because if you're in a state where you have made a mistake and you need to recover, I mean, you can always call me if you need help. I'll give you a bit of advice if it blows up, because I've done this enough times. So another thing you could do is go inside. You're gonna build a package build afterwards anyway. It's usually the best practice is to actually do. I mean, you could do an update package with just deploying the foundation if you want. Most people just click off a full package and be done with it. But get inside of it and look inside. Select the foundation component. So you just click on the foundation, and then you'll see the different foundation versions. You used to have to manually create these, and just wanted to show you that you can see all previous foundations in there, because your production environment is still going to be on that. So any future production builds will need to take into consideration which foundation is out there. So if you have an aggressive package build strategy and you change your default, if your default foundation becomes, let's say, 9.2.3.4, but production has not yet been upgraded to it, when you do your package build, you'll have to make sure that you select the older foundation to get the right deployment. Otherwise, you'll be sort of deploying the newer foundation into production. So just detailed foundation information, getting into it. Note that the file folder differences for the old foundation just tells you what it's called, and it'll end up being stored on this location on the deployment server. Okay, so the next thing in this case, we're going to move on to an enterprise server. We only have one managed instance running at this point in time. It's serving DV as the default path code. We're going to leave DV running on the older tools release. But for the new one, we have to distribute the enterprise code. And in this case, oops, I picked the wrong server there. I actually had installed, in doing the demos, I installed 2 agents on JDE ENT 01. And I set up a separate service for it. So I had 2 agents, one just a regular agent, and one in the JDE agent 2, because I wanted to leave the existing instance alone. This button should be clicked here for the JDE ENT 01, and then click the distribute software, because you got to get it what you downloaded up to the enterprise server. Then just click on the change software component button. Pick the new foundation. Notice in this case I've got both components there. I've got the 32-bit and the 64-bit version. So not only do you have to be thinking about multi-foundation, but you may also have to be thinking about multi-bitness. So if you have 2 foundations in 32 and 64-bit, you could have up to 4 foundations. That can be a little bit of a challenge to manage. And really it would be development-based, third-party tools, things that you may have written that may require 32-bit still until you get there. So just keep that in mind. You need to be thinking about bitness as well as foundation code. Again, you're going to be prompted for the system password. Click the login. Hopefully you know it by now. And there's a little bit of warning here. If you choose the 64-bit foundation, you'll see the warning about migrating from that. There's a different JDK. And I can be honest, once you guys get to all 64-bit, and you're not dealing with 32-bit JDKs anymore, life will be a little bit better for you. Instead of trying to figure out, oh, do I have the right do I have the right drivers? Do I have the right JDKs? Do I have the right database driver? So here's a little bit of note. The 64-bit deployment server foundation cannot currently be the default foundation. That may have changed in 924. So if you're going to be taking 924, you might want to check that. That might not be the case now. It was when I did this 2 months ago. Okay, so in this case, you just validate that you got the correct one. If the service was stopped, click start. And if you have any problems, check the logs as usual. Don't forget your Jazz server. You got to include AIS. Oh, one thing that's going to be really nice about 924, 924 does not have a separate orchestrator studio from AIS. That all of that stuff's going to be rolled into the AIS server, so you don't have to install a separate version of WebLogic server with the ADF components. I presume it'll mean the AIS server will have to have those components, but it'll be part of the AIS instance instead of the orchestrator. So distribute the software to all the Jazz servers. In this case, we're going to Jazz 02. Click out, get inside the instance. In this case, it was Jazz DEV HTML 8080. Currently running 9223. Click on the change button. Select the new component, and there's there's no 64-bit, 32-bit stuff. That's because the Jazz servers are 64-bit, and they have been for quite some time. Minute or two. Again, my advice is don't go on to doing other things. Let this finish. This one theoretically won't kill anything, but I just don't like to not trying to know when I can go off a page and when I can't. Sometimes is just a little frustrating. So stick with what you can there. Just stay on it. Of course, if you do this, you're going to have to synchronize the Jazz ini, and the reason why you have to do this is because those there were changes that were made to the Jazz ini. There's a Jazz ini that's inside of the agent folder under your targets, but there's also what's actually running, and that's down inside of the middleware domain home, and the changes that were made to the agent have to be replicated down to the runtime section. The stuff sitting in the target sitting in the agent folder is not what is running. It's just the configuration point, and you'll have to synchronize this. So just click on it. It only takes a minute or two. Validate that you've got it, and it's running in place. So fortunately, some of the newer tools releases of Orchestrator are done through Server Manager. The older ones were not. You actually had to update them, install them manually. But starting with the newer tools releases, you can change out the components. And again, my understanding from reading the Oracle press release is that Orchestrator instance is going to be a part of AIS, and this will not be a step you have to do. But if you're still on 92334, 92335, this is indeed what you need to do. You can just get into the existing Orchestrator, click on the change button, pick the one that you want. Notice I've got some here. I've got some older ones, 613, 711, 730. The Orchestrator Studio is very specific to the tools release. I have seen people run newer versions of Orchestrator with old versions of tools releases, not officially supported. Did it work? Somewhat. But there were ESUs that had to be applied that didn't exactly work right. So just be cautious. Try to follow the MTRs the best you can. 7.3 goes with the 9.2.2.4. Click on the change component button. Again, takes about a minute. Don't go off the page, my advice. Just validate it, and if it needs to be started, click the start button. Okay, so looks like we have about 15 minutes here to do a demo, so that's what I'm going to do. Hold on a second, folks. I got to get the Screen up. Give me just a minute, folks. Signing in. All right, let's bring this over here. Looks like I'm going to have to switch screens. All right. It's been a couple minutes, so I'm just going to click refresh here to sign in. Interesting. That's not what I wanted. That's we're going to use the JDE admin user. The reason why it had the other one is because of I had just done some component swaps. All right, so the first thing I'm going to go do in the demo, Brooke, just want to make sure my screen is being shared. Can everybody see? Because I switched.
Yep, John, I can see it.
All right, thank you. So the first thing I'm going to do is and again, this is a lab, so we have some new servers we're trying to get up and running. It's running in Azure. I'm going to go into the deployment server, and you'll notice I'm on 92333. So I want to change this to 92334. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click the change button here. And notice I have the x86 version here, but I also have the x64. And again, in this case, because I'm on 92334, this is not related to the deployment server. It's related to doing package builds for an enterprise server that's on the 64-bit. But since I haven't fully implemented 64-bit in our lab, I'm going to click on the 32-bit version here, and I'm going to click on the change component, back up the current system, and then just click the button. All right, so now I got to put the user ID and password in here. So I'm going to type it in again. And then I'm going to click the login button. Okay, so this is the step that takes about 10 to 15 minutes. So it's on step one, extracting the files, and it's going to take a bit of time. Brooke, this is going to take some time, so I'm going to maybe take a few questions if there are any while this is going on. I want to take them through the process of doing a few updates, but let's just see if we have any questions.
Yeah, I think we have 2 questions here, John.
All right.
Let's see. So let me pull them up really quick. The first one is from Jay Shreed. He says, if we already have multi-foundation installed for 9.2.3.2, does it need to be reinstalled and updated using Server Manager?
No, it doesn't. But if you were to take the next tools release, I would try it this way. You could still use the old manual method. Don't get me wrong. If you had multi-foundation set up and you wish to continue to use it, you can. But if you were to go out to 9.2.4, I would try it this way. It's because it's just so much easier. It depends on how much time you've got. If you've got some spare time, but no, you don't have to update what you've done. It will see that you have those foundations created, and will create new ones that you might have going forward.
Okay, follow-up question.
Hopefully I answered that okay. I'm not sure, but I tried. Go ahead.
He said, so is it better to trash it and reinstall?
That's subjective. I probably would. I probably would. But what I would do if it's a newer tools release, what I would do is I would just move forward and trash it after you've got the new one. If you're just trying to redo what you've done in 9232, I'd just leave it alone.
Okay, one more question from Jayshree, and she said, what about 9.2.3.5? What are the changes?
Yeah, you know what? We've been trying to figure that out. I've gone to the website several times. I know that there were bug fixes. Several of our clients took 9.2.3.5 over for just the individual components. They left most of their components on 9.2.3.4 and took the 9.2.3.5 to fix bug fixes. Oracle provides a page of fixes. And if you go to my Enterprise One Tools webcast, I include a link in there on where to go. Hold on, let me pull it up real quick. I think I have it on my desktop. Oh boy, I forgot I shared cleanly, so it's going to be a little hard to get that link. If you want, I can send you I can send you a PowerPoint that has the link to all of the tools release changes, and you'll find there's nothing on 9235. There's 9234, there's 924, but none of us could find anything on the changes on 9235.
Okay.
Sorry, I couldn't be of more help there. All I know about is bug fixes.
She said, please do send the PowerPoint if possible. Thank you.
Yep, I will, and it'll give you the link that takes you to all of the 9233, 9234, 923, and there's no 9235 in it, but then the 924, but it has everything that Oracle has fixed in the various releases, the new enhancements, but for some odd reason, we cannot find anything on 9235.
John, do you want to take one more question or are you ready to go?
Yeah, it's still on step 8, so let's take another question.
Okay, next question is from Kevin. All right, Kevin says 32-bit addresses 4 gig. How much RAM is needed for enterprise servers on 64-bit?
We're not finding that you have to add any more than what you were doing before. Of course, because the 64-bit can address much more space, you might want to add more RAM, but we have not seen any of our clients that have had to add more RAM just because they went to 64-bit. If you're one thing where it might make sense is on the enterprise servers. A lot of the kernels that like the call object kernels, they have memory constraints, and it might be of value to bump up the RAM. I would say double it, just as a rule of thumb, and maybe allow might prevent some zombies from happening if you're seeing zombies. Or it might also allow you to get more users. We're seeing some performance gains with UBEs going to the 64-bit, not earth-shattering. I wouldn't make going to 64-bit a performance thing. If you're saying, I got to go to 64-bit because I'm going to get great performance improvements, you're going to be disappointed. You will get some. We have seen some of our clients tell us long-running jobs have been cut percentage-wise significantly enough that they were glad they did it, but in general, they didn't notice much performance gain.
All right, we've got a couple more. So if you want me to keep rolling with them?
Yeah, we're still on step 9, so we got another couple minutes.
Okay, perfect. Next question is from Amir, and Amir says, is there not any full package deployment after?
Yes, you do need to go in and do a package build afterwards. You could do an update package with the foundation only. Most of our clients, most of our people would just do a full build. And the reason why is because it's just really easy to go in there and click off a full build, making sure that you're on the proper foundation. So yes, you do need a package build. I'd say the advice would be just do a full. for the path code that you're updating.
Okay, I got one more question here. It's from Prakash, and he says, when we convert 32-bit to 64-bit during tools release upgrade, do we want to consider anything for AS400 Unicode?
Well, I guess I don't understand that, because Unicode is a separate thing from 64-bit. It's just whether you're using single byte or the double byte for for languages. Again, Unicode is the default for the 9.2 series, has been for quite some time. But many people that have upgraded from years back have a Unicode business data. So I'm not exactly sure how 64-bit enterprise server makes a difference, or what your question is around how Unicode would matter. I think they're two separate things to be thinking about. Even if you go from 32-bit to 64-bit on the enterprise server, Unicode is still a completely isolated, separate consideration. So,
Okay,
all right.
that's all the questions I have for right now, John.
Okay, so we timed that right. So our deployment server finished up, and it's not 9.2.3.4. And notice I left it go. I didn't make any changes. So now let's go into. I think I changed this one. Yep. I left this instance on 9.2.3.3. So I'm going into the enterprise server, and I'm going to pick notice I've got an older version, 9.2.2.4, but I'm going to do 9.2.3.4 x86 change component. And it doesn't take too long to do the individual components, but you need to go through and do everything that you downloaded. I'm not going to do everything here. I'm going to, not going to do the orchestrator. It takes a minute. I'm not going to do every instance of Jazz server because we'll be here another hour. But I'll do the enterprise server here, and then we'll do a Jazz instance just to show you how easy it is. But this, again, on an enterprise server, if you want multiple foundations on the same box, I've talked to the folks at Oracle, and what they recommended I do is create a separate agent, and that's what I had done. Notice that JDE ENT01, I have two agents here. I have JDE agent 2 and I have JDE agent. And so I could go, but I don't have the service running because I didn't go through and debug it. I was just showing people what I could have just completely cut this out and changed the component, and not too many people would question it. But I questioned it. I'm like, well, wait a minute, I'm on the same box, right? And a lot of people that have like one iSeries box, they need to have two services running. You try to install two sets of services under the same user, and you're going to get a message saying you can't do it. So the workaround is to create a separate agent for the various enterprise services. So agent 2 can serve one foundation, and agent can serve the second on the same box. Okay, so now we've got another instance here that I had on 9.2.3.3.3. This is a Jazz instance now. Hopefully you found that comment that I made about the instances or needing two agents and putting two agents. In our case, it was a Linux server. So I installed the agent a second time in a different folder with a different user. And I'll click the change component. So I didn't want to, hide the fact that, if you were, in most cases with Windows and in Linux, you're going to actually physically have a different box for the lower level environments. I didn't make that assumption in this case, just for those of you that are on iSeries. I just wanted you to see that you can put two foundations on the same box if you need to. All right, so we did the enterprise server. Now we're on the HTML server. Take a minute or so. Brooke, that's really the end of the webcast. Are there any more questions? It's a click-by-click example.
No, not as of right now. We don't have any more questions, John.
Okay, this will finish up in a minute.
Okay.
So if there's no questions, you all don't have to stick around. All I'm going to do is validate that the tools release change to the next to 9234. Anybody wants to check out that link on the tools releases differences, let us know. We'll send you that. We will be doing a webcast with all of the really cool features of 924. Oracle really did a lot of work on 924, including getting 64-bit operation up on the deployment server. A lot of enhancements with Orchestrator to make it easier to install through AIS. They also implemented scaling with OCI. Scaling is, well, you're using X number of resources, but you need more resources, and the auto scaling will just add more resources to your instance to make your instance perform better. I think that's really cool. Again, for those of you watching the screen, I made a change to the HTML instance. I have to click the synchronize button. You will get that message, and then boom, and look, now I'm on 9234. So with that, Brooke, I'll let you wrap up.
Awesome. Thank you so much, John. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay,
I
awesome.
got you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. That was great. Well, I just want to thank you, John, for your webcast today. And before, I just want to finish with a few follow-up items. And our webcast today is part of our ongoing educational webcast series on JD Edwards. And our upcoming webcasts are currently listed on the screen. And you can just visit that link at the bottom to view our most up-to-date schedule. And we are adding multiple webcasts a week, so make sure to check back. And we also have erptalk.com, which is a problem-solving collaboration forum where you can get your JD Edwards and other enterprise applications questions answered, and you can answer other people's questions as well. Be sure to keep up with us on social media, and all of our social media handles are currently listed on the screen. And if you'd like to sign up for our weekly email reminders for upcoming webcasts or our monthly newsletter, or to create an account or access our resource center, you can go to getgsi.com, go to resources and events on the main page. All right, and thank you everybody for your questions today, and John, again, for your presentation. And I think we don't have any more questions, so I think we are good to go. We'll give you guys 10 minutes back. Thank you guys so much, and we hope that you have a great day. Thanks, John.
Thanks, everybody.